sorted. How to start Vinted reselling in 2025. After starting today's video, you're going to be able to start Vinted reselling or expand your Vinted reselling business to make your own side income or even full-time income. I started Vinted reselling around 6 months ago and have seen some great success. I started off only buying 1 to 5 items a week to now buying over 100 different items every single week. And what's great about Vinted reselling that we'll get onto is the profit margins are a lot better to some other businesses like possibly shoes, like e-commerce, and there is no limit with Vinted reselling. So in today's video, we're going to go over 4 different factors. First of all, what is Vinted reselling? Secondly, where can you buy your stock from? Thirdly, how to legit check your items to make sure you're not getting scammed. And finally, the most important of all, how to sell your items and make good profit. So firstly, what is Vinted reselling? Vinted reselling has blown up in the past year. But why is this, you may ask? And that's because Vinted has completely taken over in terms of the reselling platforms. It's taken over places like eBay, Depop, all in the space of 1 year. This is because they were the first company to introduce 0 selling fees, which is a great incentive for people to start selling on Vinted. This got a load of people on the app selling, and now other platforms like eBay and Depop are chasing up back to them because now they have also introduced 0% selling fees. So Vinted reselling is essentially buying a product for 1 item and reselling it for more. I mean, who could have guessed that? But what's great about Vinted is, unlike other businesses like sneakers where you buy off a retailer and then sell on a third-party platform, with Vinted reselling you can actually buy off Vinted and resell on Vinted. This is because the amount of users that use Vinted, a lot of people will undermarket and undervalue their prices. Then you can buy them, give them a good clean, take some good photos with a good title and description, and possibly double your money. So now we've told you what Vinted reselling is, let's get into the buying process. I'm going to give you 2 quick and easy methods to start Vinted reselling. The first method is just buying off Vinted manually. This essentially means you're going onto the Vinted app yourself and you're putting the filters that you want to see, and whenever you're free you are refreshing the app, you're looking at the newest first, you set your price filters and you simply search yourself for the items you want. This may sound like, well, how's someone going to make money if an item that's already on Vinted that no one else has bought? So things you want to look out for. Firstly, set your filters. For example, let's look at Supreme t-shirts. Me personally, Supreme t-shirts, I buy them for between £10 and £15 and aim to move them for around £25 to £30. So what will I do? I will go onto the Vinted app, I will put the max price of £15, set it to newest first, put the category as brand Supreme, and then I will put in t-shirts. Now whenever I'm free, I will refresh the app, I'll have a look, and if I ever see something pop up that I think I can make money on, I'll buy it very quick. Now this is a great way for people who are just starting out, want to get a bit of a feel for Vinted reselling without having to invest money into suppliers or the next method that we will talk about. Everyone always asks me what are the best items to sell on Vinted. Trust me, nearly everything sells on Vinted if you have it for the right price and you do a good listing. I'm talking North Face, I'm talking Supreme, Stussy, Cortez, Palace, Air Maxes, Air Forces, cheap running shoes, Asics, you name a brand, it will sell on Vinted if you either have the good listing or a good price. So let's move on to the technique that I've been using recently that has actually been getting me hundreds of stuff a week. So I use a Vinted monitor. So what this is I will get a notification for when anything is listed on Vinted and I can set my own filters. For example, if I want to only be notified for Nupsy North Face jackets for under £30, what I simply do is a simple command putting the keyword as Nupsy, and then anything that is uploaded that's North Face branded and says Nupsy in the title, I will be notified about. And what's even better about this is I can even filter what conditions I want to see, what minimum price I want to see, what maximum price I want to see. This means I'm only getting notified for the stuff I want to see. And what's great about this Vinted monitor is it allows me to do as many as I want. Yes, there are loads of channels with all the different brands, however I set up my own personal one, which you guys can too by the way, where I can set preset brands, categories, types of clothing, prices, condition, everything that I want to see. So now whenever I get notified, pretty much 90% of the time it's something worth buying. I've had some crazy steals from this. I've picked up Stussy t-shirts for £3, Supreme t-shirts for £6, North Face jackets, Nupsy jackets that go for £70 by the way. I've managed to pick them up for £25, and like I said, I have the possibility to pick up over 100 different items a week just from this Vinted monitor. I will overlay some footage on how it works, but essentially we have all the categorized channels into different brands, and then I set a keyword such as t-shirt or jacket or 700, which is a type of Yeezy, or 700 could also also be used for a type of North Face jacket, Nupsy, so then only them items I want to see with the max price that I set, I will be notified for instantly. Not only this, you do also get the auto buy feature, which does help me out a lot. So if you don't know, when these steals do get listed, they can go in seconds. So we have an auto buy feature, and once you set it up, which is really easy to do, guys, you see something you want, you press auto buy, and boom, you have now purchased the item before anyone else has. Now, I will be honest, there are a couple of Vinted monitors out there. However, they don't have the options to make your own private channel where you can set your own filters. And this is genuinely the method I use to make hundreds a week from Vinted reselling without having to spend so much time. So I can't afford to spend 6 hours a day looking on Vinted. I would rather use this Vinted monitor and just get directly pinged throughout the day. Now, you're probably wondering, yes, he's trying to sell you something here. No, this is not me trying to sell you it. This is just personally the method I use. It is my own Vinted monitor. Our speeds are completely insane. Our auto buy, our custom features like the custom channel that you don't need to get me to set up. You can do it all. So that's how I'm personally getting my stock from Vinted. There are other options such as suppliers that you can use. However, there are also a lot of dodgy suppliers, which does open up the risks of getting scammed or getting ripped off. And you really don't want that when you're starting out. Like I said, I'm not saying you have to join the Vinted monitor to make money Vinted reselling, because you can do the first method I did talk about. But if you did want to join, I will give you a nice little 50% off your first month. So it's only going to cost you £7.50 for 1 month of using this Vinted monitor. Test it out, see what you think. But yeah, we already have over 300 people using it, and the success is insane. Now, moving on to legit checking. Now, this is actually a key component within your Vinted reselling business. The last thing you want to be doing is buying fakes and then getting bad feedback, or your Vinted account getting banned. This is almost as important as buying. But do not stress, guys. I'm going to give you loads of tips and pointers so you're never going to get scammed. Tip number 1 is the seller's feedback. This might sound a bit snobby here, but I personally only buy from sellers who have at least a couple reviews. If it's a user with loads of random letters and with no star feedback, in my opinion, the chance of that person being previously banned and setting up a new account just to scam people is a lot higher than someone who has 10 5-star reviews or 4.5-star reviews, blah, blah, blah. So that is my first giveaway. The only time I've ever got a fake item has always been from someone with 0-star reviews. So I've completely cut that out. Also, that's another feature for the Vinted monitor. You can actually filter out the bad sellers. So you can only set it so you see sellers with 4 and 5-star reviews. Tip number 2, and this is the description. I know it sounds stupid. If someone puts, "I'm not sure of the authenticity of this item," it's probably fake. I mean, come on, guys. Number 3, your normal photo checks. And don't think you need to be knowledgeable on these brands. Simply one Google search. For example, you're looking at a Supreme label. Type in on Google, authentic Supreme t-shirt label. Compare that to the label that you see in the Vinted photo and go from there. Now, this obviously you're not going to be able to tell 100% of the time, but again, it's another factor that you should be checking before buying. Last one, you can always ask the Vinted seller if they have any proof of purchase. If it's an item like Supreme or something like that, they might have a receipt, or a pair of shoes, they might have an email confirmation. Could be worth asking them for this. However, here is the biggest tip of all when it comes to legit checking, because you're probably thinking, well, if I'm using this Vinted monitor and I see a pair of Air Max 95s for £5, I need to buy that as quick as I can with the auto buy before someone else does. And don't get me wrong, I do this a lot of the time. There's been many times where I haven't even looked at the photo, the description, or anything like that. I've just seen Nike Air Max 95, £5. This is the best deal of my life. Buy. What's the worst that can happen? I've spent £8 with the postage. What's the worst that can happen? It's worth the punt. You may think, well, that's quite risky, but guys, here's the other tip. When the shoes or item does come in, Vinted allow you 2 days to check your item is okay with you. If you then do your legit checks and you suspect this item is fake, you can then create a case on Vinted, which most likely of the time Vinted will accept the return and you can get all of your money back. Make sure this is in the first 2 days of the item being delivered, otherwise Vinted will not allow you to create a case and return it. But how can you make sure that this item is 100% genuine or fake? If you are still struggling after looking at all these photos, you still don't trust yourself, you're very new to the game, you can pay for a legit check. This is not a sponsored deal or anything. There are a couple apps out there like the Legit App Authenticator service and stuff like that. I will actually leave their links in the description. I'm not getting paid to say this. I wish I was. That costs around 80p to £1 £1 per check. So it does eat into your profit margins a little bit. However, if you want that 100% clarity to make sure you haven't made a mistake, it's worth doing that. Next up, selling stock. Another factor that is massive in the Vinted reselling game. So here are your best tips and tricks to make sure your listing is the best out there. And this will triple, if not 10 times, make your items sell a lot faster. First of all, your photos. Do not, please do not ever want to see another Vinted listing who's chucked the item they just bought on their bed and taken the worst ever photos with 1,000 different creases, 1,000 different wrinkles, and their photos are not in the center. It's a complete mess. Who is going to want to buy that item? Firstly, let's give this item a nice iron or a nice steam. I will leave a link in the description to a portable steam that I personally use to get the wrinkles out. And then let's lay it out on a nice background. This can be some nice floor panels. This can be like a laminate surface. This can be a marble surface. This can even be outside on a clean piece of decking. This is going to make your items look so much nicer. Secondly, use natural light, such as outside or through a window, blah, 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 so you get light coming in, or use artificial light. I don't know why I'm saying artificial light. Basically just a light on it, like a studio light that you can pay 20, 30 pounds for if you want to make it look extra crispy. And then take 5 to 8 photos of your item. So if it's a t-shirt, you want to do the front, you want to do the back, you want to do any marks or stains, and then some close-ups on the label, some close-up on the graphic. Just do photos of absolutely everything. And if you want to be even more particular, a lot of people like to leave a little tape measure, so it leaves the measurements of each dimension, so the width, the height, and so on. This is another good tip of making it sell. So when I started adding measurements onto my listings, I did actually see a good increase in sales, so I would recommend doing this. Now when it comes to your title, I do not want to see Supreme t-shirt. I want to see what week it was from. I want to see the color in the title. I want to see all the little details, the name of the actual t-shirt. This is going to help increase your sales. The more details you put in, the larger audience it is going to go to. Again, this is going to really help your sales when it comes to selling. What I will say with Vinted reselling, you're not going to make thousands in the first month. What you will do, especially if you're using the Vinted monitor, you'll get loads of different items that you're only paying below £10 for, but some of the returns you can get on these products, I've bought something for £10 and sold it for £50 before. The return is insane, and before you know it, you'll be a pro Vinted reseller. And again, if you did want access to that Vinted monitor, I promise you, you will not regret it. The feedback we've had from this Vinted monitor recently has been insane, especially that private monitor along with the auto buy feature. You're gonna have no problems picking up stock, so check that link down in the description if you did want access. 50% off your first month, £7.50, that's all it's gonna cost. I will be disabling that code after a while, so join very, very soon. Like, comment, subscribe, start your Vinted journey today, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out, guys.